This is getting crazier and crazier, and it's making me question everything that I know about diet and food and nutrition. I found one study in particular that blew my mind. This foundation intervened in a 1960s Harvard study. They paid them the equivalent of $50,000. Saturated fats have no effect on cardiovascular disease, cardiovascular mortality, or low carb or low fat. The one that is better for weight loss is... Before we get to the video, if you're interested in one-on-one weight loss coaching where you don't pay unless you lose the weight, top link in the description. Earlier this year, I graduated from college. They gave me my $100,000 piece of paper, and I've been reflecting on my experience there. All the times with my friends, all these memories that we shared together that we'll never forget. And our dining hall. We had the #1 dining out of all US college campuses. And it was really, really good. You could choose in this one section any veggie you wanted, any meat you wanted, and just give it to this guy who would stir fry it over a fire on a wok. You could also custom make sushi. You could put cream cheese in it if you hated yourself. I was really, really lucky to be able to go to this place. Until I tried the keto diet. If you do the keto diet, you're not allowed to have any carbs, like a really small amount. That means no fruit, no bread, no lentils, no rice, no pasta, no pizza, none of that. Instead, you need to have 70 to 80% of your calories coming from fat. And so I thought, I'm at the #1 dining hall, I'll be fine. I was not fine. All the meats they had, including their beef, all the random selections of food they had in the Asian, Mexican, American section, all of the food they had was either low fat or no fat. The only two things they had that were really high fat was salad dressing and eggs in the morning. And so I was eating 2 salads a day, more for the dressing than the salad, and also a 10-egg omelet every morning. But I wasn't feeling so great off of that, and so I had to stop the keto diet. It turns out you don't feel so great if you have 70% of your calories from salad dressing and eggs. Who would have thought? You see, colleges like this, and so many brands you find at grocery stores, at convenience stores, they tell you that low fat or no fat is really, really healthy. They tend to demonize fat. They point at it and say, this is how you gain weight. If you eat too much fat, you're gonna get heart disease. You're gonna get all these health complications. It's literally in the name fat, so you think you're gonna get fat from it. But it couldn't be further from the truth. In researching for this video, I found many studies that compared a low-carb diet to a low-fat diet and to some other diets so we can get to the bottom of this. And during that research, I found one study in particular that blew my mind, because it was actually paid for by the Sugar Foundation, and it will explain why so many of us demonize saturated fats, but we'll get to that later. Low carb or low fat, the one that is better for weight loss, is found in some of these studies. The first one was published in JAMA in 2007. It's called the A to Z weight loss study. They compared 4 different groups, 1 low carb group, 2 low-fat groups, and 1 balanced group. At the end of the 12 months, the low-carb group lost double the amount of weight compared to the other 3 groups. In this other study, they also compared low-fat to low-carb, and they threw in the Mediterranean diet to compare it as well. This was over 2 years with 322 people. The Mediterranean diet, by the way, is vegetables, fruits, nuts, and a lot more seafood over meat. At the end of the 2 years, the low-carb group lost 4.7 kg or 10.3 pounds, while the low-fat group lost 2.9 kg or 6.3 pounds. The Mediterranean group also did really well, losing 4.4 kg or 9.7 pounds. I'm not here to say that you need to go low carb or go keto in order to lose weight. I'm not even saying it's the best diet out there. But I am here to say that we need to stop demonizing fat. These low fat and no fat foods are not healthier. Just look at this study in 2016 in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. They found that many fat-free and low-fat foods will have a ton of added sugar in order to compensate with the flavor and texture because they reduce the fat so much. And this is exactly what happened at my college dining hall. I wanted to eat yogurt. I just wanted some yogurt. And I would go over to that section and they had 3-4 different types of yogurt. And then I would look at all the nutritional information and it would have 0 fat or really low fat. And it would have 20 grams of sugar per serving. Like, yes, it had low fat, but if it had this much sugar, can it really be good for me? Well, in this 2019 study titled "The Dose Makes the Poison," they found that over consuming added sugar is correlated with obesity. On average, Americans eat 300% the amount of added sugar that they need to, which has led to 2/3 of our population being overweight or obese. There's a lot more information on why sugar causes obesity in that study, and you can check it out below. But in general, we need to start pointing our fingers at sugar as the demon that's causing our weight gain. And the reason we demonize fats over sugar is not just because it's called fat. Most people were taught this information. Low-key, they were brainwashed by the Sugar Foundation. This foundation intervened in a 1960s Harvard study. They paid them the equivalent of $50,000 so that they can point their finger at saturated fat and downplay the role of sugar in heart disease. It wasn't even revealed until 1984 that they had such a big financial backing of this study and that there was a huge bias. This means that for those 24 years, millions of Americans were taught that it's saturated fat that's causing the heart disease, not the sugar. And you can imagine that those guys are teaching their kids and their kids are teaching their kids. $50,000 has caused this much pain and misery for Americans. Instead, we need to learn from our mistakes and reduce the amount of added sugar we have in our diets. But what should we replace those calories with? It depends on so many factors and like what type of diet you're doing. If you do want to do a low carb diet, then you're going to need a lot more fat in your diet. If you're going for more of a balanced thing, then you're going to have a lot more protein and carbs in your diet. And so it really depends on your context. And again, if you want my one-on-one help with this, top link in the description. But one thing I do want to give light to is the political history of saturated fats. It's not just that Harvard study that got paid for. In this 2022 review I found, they said that subsequent re-examinations of this evidence by nutrition experts have now been published in over 20 review papers, which have largely concluded that saturated fats have no effect on cardiovascular disease, cardiovascular mortality, or total mortality. I don't know about you, but that is absolutely crazy to me. Like, I've been demonizing saturated fat since I've been born. To hear that there could be no impact on your mortality, on your cardiovascular health, that is absolutely news to me. But for now, I'm still not fully sold on it. Like, I'm not gonna go and just eat saturated fat. I definitely am still gonna have a mix of healthy fats and no trans fats, because trans fats are literally just terrible for you. They are made in a lab and can literally cause cancer and all these different things. So stay away from trans fats. But saturated fats, I would not put them on the same level as trans fats anymore. In these guidelines that they're making, which they make every half decade, so 2015 to 2020, 2020 to 2025, they're making a brand new guideline for 2025 to 2030. In these guidelines, they're thinking of re-examining how they're looking at saturated fat, maybe making them even more than the 10% daily value that they're at right now. So just keep that in mind and just keep your eyes out. In this review, they found that there's even more financial intervention that have happened in the previous guidelines that have been made, such as the participation of plant-based advocates, an expert who promotes a plant-based diet for religious reasons, experts who had received extensive funding from industries such as tree nuts and soy, whose products benefit from continued policy recommendation favoring polyunsaturated fats, and one expert who had spent more than 50 years of her career dedicated to proving the diet heart hypothesis. This is getting crazier and crazier, and it's making me question everything that I know about diet and food and nutrition. You need to start researching everything. If you have a friend who's really jacked, really healthy, shredded, whatever, you can't just listen to them and take it as gospel. You gotta listen to it, listen to their perspective, and then go on Google, go on ChatGPT, and start to do your own research. And then when you study and find these conclusions, start to experiment with your own diet, experiment with how you feel. Because all of this information aside, I know that when I have 50 grams of sugar in a soda, in a meal, I feel like crap after. And when I have a good amount of saturated fat, if I'm eating just a bunch of ground meat, I feel really, really good. You know, that's a fact that I've seen in my own life. And just seeing the science behind it start to catch up with that understanding is just even better. So do your own research and find out for yourself what works. But thanks so much for watching the video. If you're interested in my personalized help with your diet and weight loss journey, top link in the description. You don't pay unless you lose weight. And while you're there checking out my beautiful link, why not hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell and watch this next video.